I am so excited to talk to Hollis Hodson again, candidate for Saanich Council, because we had such a good response to our first video last week, which introduced you to the community, and we talked about your past, and we promised that we would go through sort of your platform slash pillars. So, are you ready, Hollis, for a
I'm ready.
killer interview?
I'm ready.
Okay, right on. Okay, let's talk about housing policy, a topic very dear to my heart. Not housing policy as much as affordable housing policy. So I've done quite a bit of advocacy work on Lower Vancouver Island, representing companies, especially on the peninsula, around the creation of affordable workforce housing. I've worked in the West Shore around this, etc. And it just feels like nothing's happened. Like, it feels like we can talk about this issue until we're blue in the face and have like really very clear outcomes and very clear needs to create affordable workforce housing for our children and others and everyone in the community. Yet it doesn't happen. Hollis, how are you going to change that? Can a municipal candidate change that? So tell me about your housing policy, and let's dig into this and let's have some fun.
All right. Well, I think if I track back when I look at my husband and I getting our house, we weren't thinking about politics. We were thinking about possibilities. And everyone who is out there trying to get into the housing market for whatever reason or stay where they are, is looking at it from their own perspective. What are the possibilities for them? I've moved away from the word affordable because I think it's been politicized. And I think that the definition is a moving target. So I like the word attainable because it says that it is obtainable. It is something that I can work towards as a goal. And it encompasses the affordability issue. So
yeah. Oh, that's really
whether regardless of whether I'm looking at supportive, affordable, wherever that falls in the current environment, we're actually noticing that what we need is attainable housing. And we know this because there are University Heights sitting primarily empty and not attainable by people, or they would be in there. It's about having a home that we can have a vision of how I'm going to build a life in Saanich for people that might be young. And the other demographic, I'm getting a lot of door knockings and some emotions. There are people out there who've worked at anywhere from Home Depot their whole life to the healthcare profession, and they're worried. They're like, this was supposed to be for my kids. This is what I'm going to leave for them. And now I don't know if I can afford to stay here. So by the time that group
You're kidding, really? There are people saying that.
No, there are people.
There's anxiety out there.
No. I was,
That's really sad.
It is sad. It breaks my heart because they did the work, they did the planning, they've got this future that their kids are going to have. Ironically, in our area, a lot that ends up being the kids wanting to come in. I shouldn't say kids, that's not fair, but the young adults, the 20-something.
Hey, I got kids in my 40, who are in their 40s.
Yes.
I call them kids. They're clearly not kids.
They're not kids. They are young professionals looking to embark on the next stage of their life and just having roadblock after roadblock. I think the other thing we have to ask there is, what's that all about? Well, I don't like that the province has Bill 44 because it kind of says, well, we know better about all the municipalities in BC at an intimate level than those municipalities do. The municipalities have already taken a step to move from local area plans to official community plans, which also wash things a bit, right? That's the municipality going, oh, again, one rule will apply to everything. Does it? Well, I would argue that what we're seeing in our neighborhoods is no. There are many, many lots surrounding houses where there's just pockets and nothing's being built. So by the way, nobody's in those homes that we're there. Maybe we
But Hollis, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here.
Please do.
Because at some point we have to create more attainable housing. And if the councils, if the municipalities who are fully in charge of land usage, that is one of their primary responsibilities, somehow
Land
can't
management.
get it done because there are vested interests who don't want to build. How do we break that threshold, Hollis? How are you going to break that threshold?
Well, great question. I think that, well, let me cite an example so that it's obvious. For people that have been living in the Gorge Tillicum area and bordering up against the Kerry area and Mount View Colquitts, there's been talk about the towers that everyone's been excited about for over 20 years at Tillicum. They shut Kelsey's down. Oh, the towers are coming. And everyone was excited. Nobody said don't build. Everybody said that's great. And if they're attainable for us, maybe we can start to work towards something for the kids, like people, right? There was a plan. Everybody was excited. I also really got to do a shout out for Gorge Tillicum because they've also been promoting that whole area that's got a facelift. They've got holes in the ground. Nothing's being built. So I don't think people are saying stop. I think the urban centers were organically emerging. There were areas that densification was already scheduled or happening for and hasn't happened for. That's another conversation, but it hasn't happened is the bottom line. I mean, who knew you were going to get the bingo hall taken down and have that built up first? Who knew that you were going to basically, Shelburne Mackenzie is unrecognizable, right? You can understand why the people in the Quadra area are concerned. You can understand why the people in the Burnside Road area are concerned because they're not feeling heard. They're not feeling like they're a stakeholder at the table, that their voice matters. These are issues, and they're not saying don't build. Goodness gracious, we have had suites in our areas for as long as I can remember, whether they're declared or not, and that is true pretty much across suburbia. That's how people have been affording to be there. So it's not really one house with one person on a large lot. There's multiple families in areas, many of whom have raised garden beds, like they're feeding themselves. There's more to this picture. So I think what you have to do is you have to take a step back, look down and go, oh, look at that. There's a rural area of Saanich. Does it make sense there? There's a suburban area of Saanich. Does it make sense there? And then there's these urban centers.
So, first of all, fascinated by your comment that actually people want either more densification, maybe that's not what you said. They want more housing. It's not that they're not opposed to it, because that's a thing. There are some municipalities where they don't want it. I would say Oak Bay, North Saanich, that's my view, not yours, that's my view. So in Saanich, people are saying, okay, we respect the fact that we need to have more attainable housing. And then okay, why has that happened now?
Great question.
So
Yeah, great
it's not
question.
working, and you're saying that if elected, you're going to listen to these voices that you've already heard for years and now on the doorstep, and you're going to do something about it. What is that something about?
Job one is let's kick back a bit on the province. Job two is let's recognize areas for what they are and what opportunities they bring to the table. And Saanich has to follow, it has to set the bar and the lead. In Victoria, Fire Hall 1, that is on Johnson Street. For those of you who don't know, I actually used to live right across the street from that, ironically. But that fire hall has a model where they have the emergency operations center and then they have supportive and affordable housing above it. We just built the Royal Oak Fire Hall. It's beautiful. It's in the latter stages. Well, why didn't Saanich set that same model and demonstrate to the community that it is invested in this? Because what it says is, well, we only want you to do that, but we don't need to do it on our municipal properties. And that's where they should be starting with a lot of this. I mean, you've already got first responders in the fire hall, for goodness sakes. Like, you could just, it defies logic. I might have had a response out of someone at Saanich that said, yeah, that was a miss. Right? So would it have been more money for the fire hall? Yes, but it would have been less money in the long run for building the type of housing we need.
So,
And
so
then
what
you
I'm
have to
hearing,
sit.
what I'm hearing from you is that reaching some modest, attainable housing objectives is not impossible. That in fact we can do that in the largest municipality in Lower Vancouver Island.
We can absolutely do that. It's not a development versus not development issue. It's an informed decision issue. And here's the problem with communication. Assuming it's already happened is the biggest mistake. And it seems that Saanich assumes all these communications have happened, but when you're actually out knocking on doors, talking to people, having coffees, not so much. I just had a phone call, John, before we were here from a fellow who said, oh my gosh, there's a huge development that is potentially scheduled for this area. I'm not going to say where because I got to do some
Research it a little
investigation.
bit more.
But the
Yeah.
point is somebody else is already upset and going, they're finding they have to now try and navigate as an individual the full Saanich gamut of who do I talk to, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And, you know,
Here's
most people aren't
I'm
aware of
loving.
rezoning. So
Here's what I'm loving. As a voter, as someone that you might come across and knock on their door and they what I'm hearing is that this is attainable. Attainable housing is attainable. I am hearing that it requires a lot of dialogue, that it requires far more communication and far more transparency. And thirdly, I'm hearing that it's possible
it's
within
absolutely
within
possible.
within the within the current setup. You know, the government doesn't have to come in and tell us what to do. And these people don't have to do, and we don't have to make all these people mad. You know how the usual sort of sometimes
Yeah,
that's how it that there is actually a workable process which you
100%.
support. Okay.
100%. There's a defined project management process that people can follow that staff are well aware of and do follow in some instances. But, staff have to be guided by council and not as if we're already in 2050. Nobody has any cars and the buildings are all 26 high because, people have moved from everywhere else. That is not where we're living today.
Yeah.
And we actually don't know what it's going to look like in 2040 or 2050, depending on the report that you read. So now you've got to go, okay, well, let's track back to today. Where is you can't be fully operational and not pay attention to anything else. And you cannot be strategic and not tie that to your operational through practical, tactical management. And that's where current council, in my opinion, is lacking. And that's what I would like to change if I get there, is to say, no, let's dig deeper into that. When we receive a report by staff, did they have enough time to do it? Was everything investigated? Do we have enough time to read up on it? Are we asking the critical questions? Are we making ourselves available to the general community who might be catching up? Because agendas are posted on the Thursday. They go on the Monday. It's not a lot of time if you just hear from your neighbor, did you know? We need to do better. We have to do better.
Hollis, this is fantastic. I'm very, very encouraged by your solutions towards increasing attainable housing in Saanich, the largest municipality in Lower Vancouver Island. I will repeat myself until I'm blue in the face. We should be providing the leadership. I've maintained that for a long time, and of course because we have the most people, and so that and it's not a pro development or a pro this or pro. It sounds to me like it's balanced, and that is sort of the thrust of your campaign.
I think I want to have that kitchen table conversation with people where they know I'm talking a language that we can all speak and not being, mystified by political jargon or non-answers. We need to be definitive and we need to say, these are the issues and these are the small incremental steps that we can take to solve those issues and apply that same overall piece to how we're going to do development to ensure that everyone has housing, supportive, be affordable, which is attainable, and for people who also want to come and live here in family homes.
Well thought out, inspirational, practical, pragmatic solutions. That's Hollis Hodson, and that's why you need to be on Saanich Council. This is great. Every week we're going to do some summaries of the issues facing our community, and these kind of discussions you're having at the doorstep, you're having at your coffee shop meetings, you're having at the concerts in the parks. This is great. This is what people want, to be heard and have their viewpoint implemented through your as you become successful through your position on council. Hollis, thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
Will do. Thanks, John.